Hey guys, it's Megan. Welcome back to another video. Look at my earrings. They're little mini ears like Disney, like you wear at Disney World, but they're earrings. Anyway, I just thought they were super cute and you had to see them. So it is very late at night and I want to go to bed, but I'm going to do a wrap up first because I have recently read 5 books and I thought I should tell you about them. So of course, I'm not doing monthly wrap ups anymore because I'm not reading that many books. So I figured every time I read 5 books, I will stop and do a recent reads wrap up. So we're going to do 5 books and this is actually pretty good because I had a 5-star and we're going to start with it first. And that was the Elon Musk biography. You're gonna be like, what? Why did you give this 5 stars? Like, you don't even read nonfiction, let alone biographies. I don't. And well, I have been reading like more autobiographies and things. And I don't know, I just thought Elon Musk, he's an interesting guy. I don't know that much about him. I know he's done a lot of stuff. I knew he did like SpaceX and Tesla and now X with Twitter. And I was like, how do all these things fit together? Like, what makes somebody want to go into space and make cars and also own Twitter? Like, those are all so random. I thought, I'll check it out. But the book was so long, 20 some hours of audiobook. Like, it was really long. And I thought, I'll just see if it's any good. I'll probably DNF it. I'm not really expecting that much. It was amazing. It was absolutely fantastic. I highly recommend it, even if you don't care about Elon Musk, because it turns out this guy is fascinating. He has a crazy life story. And I will say that the only thing I didn't like about the book is that at the beginning, it was more like very fast paced. Like, he gets to be pretty famous pretty quickly. And I kind of wanted to know more so like how he got to that point. So I wanted a little bit more of his backstory at the beginning, but most of it focuses later in his life, like as he's building all of his companies and everything. And so you just realize that he's a real interesting guy. Like, I did not realize how similar he is to me, I guess. Like, I'm not as smart as Elon Musk, obviously. Just like, he's very introverted and, you know, when he's obsessed with something, like, it's all he can think about until it's done. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, I do that too. I just feel like we're so similar in some ways. And so like, he will just stop at nothing to get things done. He did things his own way. So like, if, you know, the government regulation said one thing, he's like, but why? Like, who made that regulation? And people are like, well, this certain like branch of the government. He's like, no, what person? Figure out what person made that regulation and why, and we're gonna get it like changed. So, I mean, he would do anything. And he's like, no, like, we're not having this sticker on the car that we have to have about airbags. And they're like, but you have to have it. And he's like, no, well, then we will design some sort of system that can detect whether a child is in the seat or not. We will literally spend time doing that so that we don't have to have that sticker in our car. Like, he will go around the rules and he's just so fun, but like, he has a lot of issues. Like, he kind of has a dark side and he is just a fascinating character. And I absolutely loved this book and I gave it 5 stars and you should totally read it. And it was worth every minute. I could not wait to pick up the book each time. I would lay there listening to it as I was falling asleep, but I wouldn't get sleepy at all. Normally I get so sleepy listening to my audiobooks, even if they're good ones. This one, I was like listening to every word. I was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen next? It was like a story. Like, you didn't know what was going to happen. So anyway, highly recommend. Okay, let's take it down a notch. The next book was 3.5 stars. So it was fine. It was a little better than average. And that is Mislaid in Parts Half Known. This is the next book in the Wayward Children series by Shauna McGuire. Is it book 9? I don't even know. Yeah, book 9. At this point, there have been so many. I have kind of an interesting past with this series because I've enjoyed most of the books. Some of them I gave 4.5 stars. I thought they were really, really good. Like, any books about Jack and Jill or their world, books like what, 2, 4, something like that, I gave like 4.5 stars. Thought they were great. If you hear noises, I don't know what's going on. My child and my husband are supposed to be, like, my husband's supposed to be putting my child to bed and it sounds like they're in a like wrestling match up there. I don't know what they're doing. They're supposed to be going to sleep. But anyway, this book was supposed to be about dinosaurs. They were supposed to go to a dinosaur world. That is a very small part of it. There are very few dinosaurs. And I don't want to spoil what happens with the dinosaurs, but let's just say it's not what I expected, which I kind of liked. It kind of flipped it on its head with what I thought was going to happen with the dinosaurs. So that was good. But it was fine. Like, I did like that there were a lot of characters. A lot of the recurring characters have come back. They just didn't have a ton to do. Like, there was some stuff, there was a plot, but like, it was just sort of there. It was kind of cozy. It was kind of fun. I read this one physically, which I think actually was, I don't know, it was just so different than the other ones because I read all the other ones on audio and I'm so used to listening to them. And usually that's why I enjoy them. It was weird focusing on it solely and not multitasking. I don't know. It was fine. Like, I enjoyed it. I liked it better than some of the Wayward Children series. And then I thought it was not as good as some of the others. Okay, the next one is technically a DNF, but I read 61% of it. And I've decided that if I read at least 50% of a book, especially if it's a longer book, I'm counting it. I'm counting it as a book I read because I spent a lot of time on it. And that is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is no surprise I DNF'd it. It's like fantasy romance and it's young adult. We know from my DNF video last year. Why would I read this book? I DNF like every fantasy romance, especially the young adult ones. Have I ever read a young adult fantasy romance I've enjoyed? No. Not that I can think of. I mean, I could look on Goodreads and go through my list and see, but I'm pretty sure I've never enjoyed any of them, or rarely even finished them, honestly. So I did DNF this one at 61%. If I had finished it, I could have pushed through. It would have been about a 2 or 2.5 stars. It was different than I expected. It was very slow paced. It felt very like historical fiction. Like that's what the atmosphere it felt like to me. It didn't really feel like fantasy that much, but there was, of course, that romance element. It just felt like historical fiction for some reason, which is just not what I'm into. But I have heard that the sequel, was it Destiny? Yeah, Destiny from Destiny Said Well says that the sequel is actually more about the world building and the mythology and stuff, actually the divine part, like the gods, I guess, and not as much about the romance. So she didn't care, but I think that's what I would like, because I don't care about the plot and the romance, but I would care about the world building. So maybe I should have continued, but I read a synopsis of this book, and the ending actually sounded really good. Like I'm glad I didn't push through, but the ending does sound like it leaves off on kind of like a massive cliffhanger, and it sounds really interesting. But anyway, DNF'd, would have given it like 2 stars. The next book I have physically, boy, this was a saga. This is why this video is so long in the making. It's like, why is it taking me forever to read 5 books? Well, because the Elon Musk book was super long, but also this one was super long. This audiobook was 22 hours long. 22 hours. This book's like almost 500 pages, but look at that font. Look at that. There's a lot of words per page. It's tiny. There's not much space between the lines. This book was 22 hours long. Why did I read this, you ask? Well, it's a horror novel, and I read it because Kayla from Books and Lala on her channel, she said that if you liked, was it Home Before Dark by Riley Sager? Or maybe it was A God in the Shed. No, I don't think it was A God in the Shed. I don't know. Dead 11. There was some book that she said if you liked it, you'd probably like this even better. I can't remember what book it was now. But I enjoyed the other book, whatever it was. Maybe it was Home Before Dark, like a haunted house story. And I thought, oh, well, I loved Home Before Dark. If that's the one it was. Whichever one it was, I really liked it. We get that. Okay, move on. So I thought, well, she recommends The Good House. This author has the best name ever, Tananarive Due. That's like the best name ever. I thought, I'll try it. Well, it was boring. It was boring. It was slow. It was boring. However, it was so well written. This is an excellent author. This book was so like, talk about show and not tell. You could see every scene, but some of the scenes were unnecessary. I didn't need to know every little detail of their lives, especially because it didn't relate to the actual plot of the book. Here's what I didn't know, and that you should know right up front before you read this book, is that this is not a haunted house story. I mean, kind of, but not really. This is a story about possession. It's about being possessed by like a demon. That's what this is about. So if you want to read about characters being possessed, I do not care about possession stories. I have learned that about myself. I've tried a couple. I don't know. That doesn't interest me at all. Haunted house stories, yes. Like Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. Loved it. 4.5 stars. I cannot wait to read that book again. Great haunted house story. It was like dual timelines with past and present. That must have been the book that was recommended for this, because this has dual timelines too. I could care less about some of the stuff going on in the past in this book. I mean, you kind of needed it for the plot, obviously, but like it just didn't matter. Like you knew where it was going. There was no plot twist. I thought, well, maybe there'll be a plot twist. No, like you saw every single thing coming. It was so obvious. There was really nothing moving the plot along, because you knew which characters were possessed the whole time. And you were just like kind of waiting on the other characters to figure it out. And then they do figure it out. So you're like, okay, well now they know who's possessed. The main character knows she needs to fight them. Okay, now I guess she's going to fight them. And she's going to kill the demon, whatever, banish him. Okay. The ending I also thought was ridiculous. There's like a little prologue or epilogue at the end where it's like, here's how it wraps up to make it a happy ending. And honestly, that part was so stupid. Like, it's bad. It's kind of like it was all a dream. It's not that. It's not that it was all a dream, but there is something like that. It was just stupid. So anyway, I don't know what to rate this book. I wound up rating it 3 stars. Most of it I didn't really enjoy, but the writing was so good. So yeah, I don't know why I even powered through. I was so committed. I'd read 10 hours of the audiobook, at that point, and I was halfway, and I kept going for some very unknown reason. And finally, the last book I have to talk about is the biggest surprise ever. And that is, I read a book by Brandon Sanderson, and I didn't DNF it. I said I would never read Brandon Sanderson ever again because I absolutely hated his other books. I thought he was not a good writer. In some ways, I guess he was a good writer. It's not that he was a terrible writer. It was just that his writing was not for me. I thought it was very bland. I thought it was very boring. Like, I just didn't think it wasn't very like lyrical or poetic. I didn't think he was that talented of a writer. Like, he wasn't a natural writer. It's like he learned the writing craft and he was like piecing together all the techniques he learned. And that's what it like, felt like, more like a science or something rather than art, I guess. That's a good analogy. There you go. Like, Brandon Sanderson is more of a scientist when it comes to writing rather than like an artist. And I'm like all about Anne Rice and like lyrical writing and not about whatever his writing was. I don't know. It's just like you can feel him writing it or something. It's like his writing style is like heavy-handed. I can't even describe it. But I decided for some strange reason to read Tress of the Emerald Sea because other people said it was their favorite book of last year. And when I read the plot synopsis, I was like, oh, a girl like tries to save her guy that she loves by becoming a pirate and sailing these seas. And it's funny and whimsical. And I was like, what? Like, Brandon Sanderson writes something that's funny and whimsical? It was so funny. His brand of humor is perfect for me. I just can see where other people would not enjoy it. I absolutely loved this book. And I gave it 4 stars. 4 stars. Yeah. DNF'd all the other Brandon Sanderson books I've tried, which is like 2. But I tried Mistborn, like The Final Empire, and then I tried Way of Kings and made it literally 750 pages into the Way of Kings before I DNF'd it. I would read any book he writes that's funny because this narrator is hysterical. And it's the fact that he uses this like certain narrator character that like has this sense of humor. And I loved it. I thought it was funny. It was clever. There were parts in the middle that bogged down. That's why it's not 5 stars. Where she's on the pirate ship and it's a little slow. I thought there'd be more than just her on the ship the entire time. It's mostly her on the pirate ship. The beginning and end were the best parts, the setup, and then of her getting onto the ship and like why she gets on the ship, and then the end when finally everything goes down with like the villain and stuff. All those were the best parts. But then there were so many funny moments in between, and you're gonna see me talk more about it in a vlog I'm doing where I'm reading some books that I never thought I'd read. Let's just say that. So yeah, you're gonna hear me talk a lot more about it, and I'll read specific quotes that I liked and things like that. I wound up giving this book 4 stars and I highly recommend it. But of course, once again, you have to enjoy that writing style that he has. And if you don't like the humor in this book at the beginning, it just continues the entire time and maybe you won't like it. Like, the main character breaks the 4th wall. And I mean, it sounds like sometimes there are really like modern phrases that he uses and, you know, in this like epic old timey book. And I think that's even makes it funnier. So those are the 5 books I read in the last, like, I don't know, month and a half, I guess. Like, I've only done one other wrap up for the whole year, and it's like towards the end of March, so, or mid-March, whatever day this is. I think it's towards the end of March, yeah. So anyway, I will do this again in 5 more books. And let me know down below if you have enjoyed any of these books, if you also think that Elon Musk biography is like one of the best books ever. Anyway, highly recommend it. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.